All right, today we're diving into a really radical new model for living. Seriously, this is a blueprint that tries to solve two of our biggest modern problems all at once: the crazy housing crisis and, believe it or not, the fight for our own digital freedom. Let's see how it imagines a future built on real autonomy and tech that actually serves people. So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the core problems, the twin crises. Then we'll meet the 1.5 million people who are already navigating this new reality. After that, we get to the really cool stuff, the physical solution, this zero-impact base camp, and how energy literally pays for life. And we'll wrap it up with the digital side of things, the knowledge revolution. Okay, so the whole reason this model even exists is to tackle what it calls the twin crises. One is super obvious, right? It's physical. It's the absolute failure of our housing markets. But the other one is digital. It's the failure to protect who we are online. And this quote, this just gets right to the heart of it all. It sets up this fundamental conflict. Are we just our bank accounts? Are we defined by our wallet? Or is there something more? This model argues, yeah, there is. It's about what we know and what we contribute. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The argument is that these two things are totally connected. The struggle for a place to live is tied directly to the struggle for control over our digital selves. You know, the physical crisis traps us in markets we can't afford, while the digital crisis turns our own data and ideas into a product for someone else. It's a nasty loop. So, who is actually living on the front lines of these crises? Well, the model points to this huge and mostly uncounted population it calls independent mobile agents, or IMAs. And get this, they're not framed as victims at all. They're seen as an active, powerful new economic and social force. And that number, that should stop you in your tracks. 1.5 million people. Just in Australia. This is the true scale of what you might call an invisible economy, a whole population of incredibly capable people whose value just isn't measured by traditional systems, all because they don't have a fixed address or a 9-to-5 job. And this table just brilliantly shows you how diverse this group is. We are not talking about one type of person. It's a whole ecosystem. You've got your knowledge itinerants who are driven by their expertise, and then you have occupational nomads. Think of essential workers like nurses who are often priced out of the very towns they keep running. Let's dig in a little closer, because this is fascinating. We're talking about a brain trust on wheels. Former diplomats, UN folks, top execs. It also includes the unsung heroes who are literally building the internet as we know it, the people maintaining open source software. And then you've got key workers, artists, and even students who are basically on a rent strike to try and build a life without crushing debt. Okay, so if this is the reality for so many people, how do you build for them? The physical piece of the puzzle is a network of what are called zero-impact base camps. RES-S, that's the core strategy. And the idea is pretty simple but powerful. You take these passive, often underused pieces of land, like old camping sites, and you turn them into active, productive community assets. They're not just for shelter. They become hubs for community, for new ideas, and even for disaster response. Now this is the part that totally flips the script. This model throws out the entire real estate playbook of just squeezing money out of residents. There are no crazy high user fees to pay back the initial investment. The infrastructure itself actually generates the revenue to pay for its own existence. Which, of course, leads to the big question. How on earth can a multi-million-dollar project pay for itself without charging the people using it? Well, the answer's kind of genius, and it's all about energy. Okay, look at this slide. This is the economic engine. The whole system is split in two. You have Unit A, which is for people, the shelter, the community spaces, and that's kept super cheap or even subsidized. And then you have Unit B. That's the powerhouse. It's a renewable energy asset that generates clean power, sells it back to the grid, and that revenue pays for everything in Unit A. And that's the punchline right there. The energy asset literally pays for the life asset. It creates what the source material calls a form of universal basic infrastructure. It separates your basic right to have a roof over your head from the need to work a job you might hate, creating a real, tangible safety net. So once that physical base provides safety and security, the model circles back to that second crisis, our digital lives. How do we take back our identity online and make sure that valuable work actually gets, well, valued? And this is the central question of the digital age, isn't it? Every single day, we're all doing free work. We're building open source projects, we're contributing to forums,
or we're just creating data that trains some company's AI. This model calls that a form of digital slavery, and it actually proposes a way to end it. The whole solution starts with something called digital personhood. Now, don't think of this as just another online profile. It's more like a digital passport that you own, that you control, and that is completely separate from any big tech company. So here's how this knowledge banking actually works. First, you prove your skills using what are called verifiable credentials. Think of them like digital certificates that can't be faked. You store those in your own private data locker. Then, every contribution you make gets digitally signed, creating a permanent record. And finally, smart contracts kick in automatically to make sure you get paid fairly anytime your work is used. And this table just lays out the huge shift in thinking. You go from basically giving away your data and your work for a pat on the back to owning it and having it treated as a formal, valuable asset. It completely changes the game for experienced people, especially seniors, turning them from passive members of a community into active, protected co-creators of real value. And finally, the thing that ties the physical world and the digital world together, the on-site makerspaces. These are way more than just workshops. They're the living heart of the community. It's where a retired engineer can teach a young artist, where you can fix your own gear, and where that whole culture of resilience, which fuels both the physical camp and the knowledge bank, is actually built day by day. So we end up right back where we started, but with a new question. If our basic infrastructure paid for itself, and if our knowledge was treated as a valuable asset, who could we all afford to be? It's a pretty powerful vision for a future that's defined not by what's in our wallet, but by our actual human potential. Thanks for tuning in.